Hello and welcome to The Price of Football, the show that looks at the money behind the beautiful game with me, Kevin Day, and Liverpool University's Kieran Maguire. Kieran, it's news day, and I'm a big man, Kieran, so I think we should acknowledge the news that despite your fears on Sunday about getting tanked by Southampton, you breezed through that game and you breezed into Europe. If you can hear me through the gritty teeth, Kieran, congratulations. You fully deserve it, I have to say.
Thank you. I was almost crying. It was one of those things which it just hits. We both supported football clubs that have stared into the abyss at times, and yes, we've come back, and there's some great moments, and then I just lost it for a minute or so. Yeah, it was absolutely wonderful, and thoroughly looking forward to it. And then the club owner has given every single member of staff a 20% bonus to acknowledge their achievements, which is a sign. I'm not saying it because he's the bright note. I say it whoever the owner was. It's great to acknowledge the people who are behind the scenes, because you start the day with a smile on your face, and that helps a ripple throughout a club, and that's sort of the culture that you should be looking for, regardless of who's in charge.
Yeah, I'm welling up here, Kieran. Welling up, literally. I wish you. I hope you have a lovely. I don't, Kieran. I hope you have loads of cancelled planes, huge passport queues, all that sort of thing. But no, it's great. It's a great achievement, and well done, everybody at Brighton. So let's move on to the news, Kieran, shall we? The news that matters. Breaking news in just the last 10 minutes or so. We're recording this on Wednesday morning. Big news from Germany, Kieran.
Yes, it looks as if the German Football League is in talks and is potentially going to take a huge injection of cash, somewhere in the region, I think it's €2 billion, from private equity. Now, private equity has got no interest in football. Private equity has got no moral or ethical compass. Historically, you've got to look at its relationship with other sports. Private equity does have money. So how this is going to play out, we'll have to wait and see. I think it's fair to say that we've already had a bit of pushback from St. Pauli, from Union Berlin, and one or two other clubs. I think you have to have a 2/3 majority in order to get decisions through. And I think what really interests me will be the reaction of German fans. I do think that German fan culture is something which is to be admired. They are very organised. Yeah. They get the message across, and they have been successful in that, because there's greater emphasis to put aside club differences and work for a common cause. At the same time, I don't think I've ever been prouder of being a fan of an English club than when we took down the Super League. And at those moments, fans do come together. So we'll have to wait to see here. Private equity is willing to put money into football because it's looking for a return on that investment, and that return is not an emotional investment; it's a financial investment, pure and simple. It will probably result in fans having to pay more in due course if this goes ahead. At the same time, I understand that some clubs are a bit skint and they're looking for additional funds. Just be careful who you get into bed with. Would be my comment there.
I predict, Kieran, in the days and weeks to come, we'll be hearing a lot more from German fans, because they are rightly proud of the role they play in German football and the place they have in it. There's probably more of a sense of ownership of the clubs from German fans than there is from English fans, and they're very proprietorial towards their clubs, as you say, but also willing to put that aside for the greater good. But from where has the impetus for this loan come from, Kieran? Has the German Football League approached private investors, or has the private investors approached the German league?
I think the German league has let it be known that it is conscious that the Premier League is the Super League
right.
in Europe. And therefore wanting to give the clubs resources to do some form of catch up in terms of infrastructure investment, in the terms of the ability to compete in the talent market and so on. I absolutely understand that, and it is a case of sort of keeping up with the Joneses as far as the German clubs are concerned, and the logic of that is you get some short-term money and spend it wisely. The trouble is that we've spoken at length with regards to Barcelona taking investment in a short-term basis, but then committing itself to give a proportion of its revenues for 20, 25 years. We've seen this in English rugby. And that's not worked out particularly well because we've got clubs such as Wasps and Worcester Warriors and potentially London Irish in deep financial trouble. If you're dealing with institutions who are very, very smart, and I'm not denying that, and very, very good at making money, it means that if one party is making a lot of money, then that money's got to come from somewhere. Now, whether it's going to be from in terms of clubs having to give up a proportion of their revenues in future years, whether it's going to come through higher ticket prices, higher merchandise prices, higher subscription prices for TV, we'll have to wait and see.
Wasps are essentially a Sunday League rugby team now, if there is such a thing, having to start all over again, which is slightly worrying for some football fans, considering how big a club Wasps were. We were talking about this the other night, Kieran. Not we, you, as in you and I, because you were too busy getting on Google Translate to ask how much is your quinoa in several different languages. But we're talking about Man City's success. The broadcasting deal in Germany, Kieran, has that gone down because Bayern Munich win it every year? And as you've talked about before, broadcasters prefer a bit of competition. Is that part of the problem? Is that partly why the other clubs are so short of money?
Bayern Munich are very, very successful. That does reduce jeopardy. That does reduce that competitive tension that exists. And that's one of the criticisms, which is, there's a bit of a sniping campaign being directed at Manchester City, which I think is harsh. Pep Guardiola is a genius.
I agree.
And if you look at Manchester City signings, well, no disrespect, they didn't pay 80 million for Anthony, and they didn't pay 70 million for Darwin Núñez and so on. They get it right in terms of recruitment, and then you've got arguably the most innovative coach on the planet, and that's why we're ending up with a period of domination. But it's down to good decision making. It makes it more difficult, and also I think you've got to give the Premier League credit for what they did. They're reaping the rewards of what they did 30 years ago in terms of going to foreign markets, saying, look, we'll effectively give you the rights to the Premier League, our new competition, for nothing. And part of the reason why they did that was that, you and I both remember football was pretty troubled in the 80s. It was. Yeah. And they said, look, we got this product. They marketed it extremely well. And we now are reaping that reward in the sense that international broadcast rights are exceeding the domestic rights. And who watches German football? Who watches the Bundesliga in Australia, in Nigeria, in Hong Kong, in the US, and so on? The markets there are very small because the international fans, for want of a better phrase, yes, that they like Bayern Munich and they got an interest in Real Madrid and Barcelona, but it's the Premier League, and that's the focus.
Talking of huge injections of investment, Kieran, a club just down the road from where you work looks like they'll be getting some cash coming their way shortly. Yes,
this does. I mean, Everton have been in talks for a period of time, and effectively with two potential partners, one of which is called 777. And 777 are a multi-club ownership entity. They're based in Miami. We all remember Miami Vice from back in the day. And they own Standard Liège, Vasco da Gama in Brazil, Genoa, Red Star in France, Melbourne Victory. I think they own a London basketball team as well. So it's very, very broad based. They also have a managing partner called Josh Wander, who has got a bit of a history in respect of cocaine trafficking, which always
just stop you there, Kieran. You say a bit of a history. I'm not sure how you have a bit of a history.
Now, as people know, I'm quite obsessive about food and drink to a certain extent. So I've never tasted alcohol. I've never had a boiled egg. I've never tasted coffee.
Whoa. So I'm going to have to roll you back again, Kieran. Now, we've gone from cocaine trafficking to you've never had a boiled egg.
Never had a boiled egg, no.
What do you mean you've never had a boiled egg? How can you go through life being raised in South London, never having a boiled egg?
I'm just a bit odd.
Fried egg?
Yes. I had a... Yeah. I've never had a scrambled egg. I did try a fried egg when I was about 6, and didn't go down well. And then sort of when I joined the Hare Krishna movement at university, their beliefs is that eggs are sort of from the devil themselves. So that sort of reinforced my anti-egg campaign. I'll have them in cakes because I can't see or taste them. But I keep, omelettes, no.
This is a deviation, Kieran, here. But do you know what? All those years, I used to really admire the band of Hare Krishnas who would parade through London every day, taking some jollity and stick from some people, which I didn't approve of. But I thought, to be honest, Kieran, that their beliefs were on a rather higher spiritual plane. If I'd known that half of that chanting was anti-boiled egg, I would have been I would have been less inclined to stop and talk to them about their blitz. Really, I can't. It's astonishing how you've never failed to surprise me, Kieran. I'm genuinely taken aback by the fact you've never had a boiled egg or an omelette. It's just, what happens to you what do you ask for in CAFs?
This is an issue because if I go to for McDonald's or Burger King for when you desperately need something in the morning and it's always sausage with egg or bacon with egg, and I sort of do the Monty Python spam routine. Can you do anything without egg? And they look at me as if I've grown a second head. It's been challenging at times. But I've also never taken any drugs. So I am so dull.
Oh right, bring it back. To Josh. Well done. Excellent circularity there, Kieran. Like an actual egg itself. Or well, it's not.
That's right.
Which is not circular. It's ovoid, but yes.
That's right. Yeah. Mr. Wander has done some time in respect of for drugs trafficking. He said I had 31 grams of cocaine for my personal use.
Whoa!
And now I don't know, and I'm cool. That doesn't mean I'm a Brexiteer. I'm an ounces man, Kevin. Myself. But I do understand that for reasons best known to the world, cocaine is measured in grams, and I believe that 31 grams would be a bit of a party night for a single person. Is that correct from stories you've heard?
Kieran, I've been in showbiz for 30 years, Kieran. So I'm aware of the cocaine, as they say. 31 grams is an awful lot for personal use.
Yes.
Really, but good. I'm sure there's a loophole lawyer somewhere that could probably get him out, could get 3 points off his license just for that. But yeah. So that's his history of drug. I still don't know how he's got started talking about boiled eggs, but we're 14 minutes in, Kieran, and so far all we've discussed is Germany and boiled eggs. So perhaps we should move on a little bit.
Yes. So I think he might have had a bit of a challenge passing the owners and directors test. So the other interested party is referred to as MSP Sports Capital, and it has now signed an exclusivity contract with Farhad Moshiri. So they're based in New York. Now, from what I understand, talking to sources, that they're going to put money in. If this deal goes ahead, they're going to put this deal in what we call convertible debt or convertible shares, and they convert into. So initially, MSP Sports Capital will have no no voting power as far as being shareholders are concerned, and however they're going to get the money across, interest effectively is going to have to be paid by Everton on that, and it's going to be used to fund the stadium. But I think also as part of the deal, we can anticipate some pretty major changes at boardroom level. As far as Everton Football Club are concerned, with MSP Sports Capital wanting, certainly from, I talk to journalists and people in the game and so on, I think they're looking to have 2 people on the board of directors, and they're looking for effectively a fresh broom at Everton. Everton have lost an awful lot of money in recent years, and in due course, those loan notes or preference shares, they will convert into ordinary shares, traditional voting shares, which will give MSP Sports Capital around about 20 to 25% of Everton. And I suspect that, then there will be a conversation between MSP and Farhad Moshiri as to how does he see his future relationship with the club, because he's come in for a fair amount of criticism from Everton fans, and also there have been eyebrows raised about his historic relationship with Alisher Usmanov, who was, I'm not saying he's a wrong one, but he was banned from coming into the UK 6 months before Russia invaded Ukraine, and at that point he had assets frozen.
I would legally be loath to call him a wrong un, but let's just say there are factors that indicate there is potential for wrong unness. If you look at Usmanov's history and his relationship with Putin, for example, it's interesting to hear what you just said, Kieran, about that 25%, because over the weekend, rumours suddenly started to circulate about how bad Everton's financial situation actually is, and I don't want to get into those because they were just rumours by the look of things, but journalists don't seem to be entirely sure whether this is investment by MSP Sports Capital or a takeover bid. But what you said there indicates that perhaps you say discussions will be had about Moshiri's future, that there is a kind of element of hostile takeover here then, Kieran, from what you're saying.
Yeah, I think there's a pathway towards MSP increasing their involvement, and we've seen similar at Leeds United. Yeah, we've got the 49ers investment fund, who have a substantial investment now in Leeds United Football Club, with with an option at some point to taking more than 50% and therefore having operational control over the club. Farhad Moshiri has put a lot of money into the club at Everton. He'll be looking to get that money out, but it's been a pretty rocky relationship in terms of the quality of the decision making which has been made there, which is and that's why Everton are looking nervously over their shoulder for this coming weekend in terms of trying to get the point or points needed to avoid relegation.
Well, I was going to ask you that, Kieran. Is this investment from MSP contingent on them staying in the Premier League?
No, I think the conversations have gone sufficiently down the road,
right,
that it's going to be looking at Everton as a long-term investment, and therefore the assumption will be that if Everton are relegated on Sunday, it's just a passing phase, and they'll be back in the Premier League pretty quickly.
Right, because I mean, as an investor, established Premier League team with that amazing-looking ground coming along would seem to be a fairly safe bet, wouldn't it?
Yes, yeah. I mean, I know people that have been to the ground and have looked around, and the feedback that's been given to me has been extremely positive. And I know Evertonians are very proud of Goodison in terms of the history and the heritage and the memories. But this is going to be quite a spectacular step up in terms of facilities. What the club's got to remember, of course, is that you don't want to price out those fans that have been with the club through thick and thin.
Yeah. If Everton fans are in for an anxious few days, Kieran, welcome to Wigan fans' world, because another anxious few days coming up for them.
Yes. What a mess. And Wigan have been through. Been through administration. They've been through two sets of Far East owners. Under Dave Whelan, they were run very, very rigidly. Very, very focused on making ends meet, and that was a success. And now the new owners have come in, and Wigan have been given a 4 points deduction for the start of next season. So they're going to start in League One in 23-24 on -4 points. And this is because, yet again, a late payment of wages.
Yeah.
I think that's five times in a year. On top of that, they've been threatened with a further points deduction. And this is because the owner has been told, we've effectively lost faith in your ability to pay wages. So therefore, what you have to do is you have to deposit into an account which you can't access once the money goes in, an account in which you put 125% of the following wage bill. And this allows the EFL to say, yeah, the money's in now, so therefore the wages, we don't want this to go ahead. If he fails to put that money in, or if the wages are failed to be paid, then there will be a further 4 points deduction. And then there was, this one is very weird. Wigan have already been relegated. Matches have finished in the EFL Championship for season 22-23, and they've now been given a 3 point deduction for this season. Right. So okay, they end up officially on the table, which is printed off. And this is for failing to pay wages on time in March 2023. The -4 points for next season is for a later wage payment. So it does seem a bit of tokenism. That if you're down, you're down. If my team's relegated, I don't remember the number of points that we earned. We just went down. Who cares? So that does seem a bit of a strange one, but there have been funny things taking place. They had an experienced chief exec who appeared to be sort of got rid of in a night of the long knives, and since then things have certainly appeared to have got worse and worse.
I went to Wigan several times under Dave Whelan's ownership, and it was a brilliant place to go. It was a lovely club. He was a really nice bloke, but I remember talking to one journalist up there saying, "Oh, he's a throwback. He's it's just like the old 70s local boy makes good owner. This club needs to move on from that." And they've moved on from that, kid, and it's been a fucking disaster.
Yeah, so be careful what you wish for.
Absolutely be careful what you wish for. And that sometimes these old blokes who are local boys made good, who want to keep their club going, are exactly what you want. And if Wigan's a mess, Kieran, Fleetwood Town is a mess squared at the moment.
Yes. We need an extra chair for our Ronan's gallery. And that chair is for Mr. Andy Pilley. Andy Pilley has been found guilty of fraud and money laundering offences. This is in respect of an energy company that he ran called BES Utilities. And Fleetwood Town have been one of those clubs that have punched above their weight in recent years, and fair play to them. They've come from non-league. They've managed to get into the championship, but they've lost £60,000 a week for 6 years, and that's a lot of money to find for such a small club. And that money has effectively come from Andy Pilley and his other activities. And I think there's, to a certain extent, parallels here with what we saw at Bury in relation to their former owner, Stuart Day, who had a business which was a bit rickety. And when he walked away, then the problems really amplified. So Fleetwood have been paying wages which exceed revenue, and that's going to be difficult to repeat in the future. Both BES Utilities and Fleetwood Town are saying, well, yeah, this is a shareholder. This is an owner who has been tainted. Nothing to do with us, Gov. And that's fine. But whilst Andy Pilley was not an employee of BES Utilities, he was the major shareholder, and therefore, he does have an interest. Clearly, there will be reputational damage as far as that business is concerned, and it's an entity which employs people, as does Fleetwood Town Football Club. So, where this leaves the EFL in terms of you've got one of your member clubs owned by somebody who would appear to, if he applied to buy a football club today, would quite spectacularly fail the owners and directors test. I think it's a challenge for the EFL. They will be wanting to ensure first and foremost that we have a Fleetwood Town Football Club, and then have to deal with the ownership interests. But I think it is going to be a very challenging summer and period of time for the club itself.
Do you know what, Kieran? I'm going to suggest to the EFL they add something else to the owners and directors test, and that should be that the potential new owner and director should have had a boiled egg. So I can't quite get that out of my head, Kieran. I'm just hoping. I know a lot of politicians listen to this pod, and I'm worried that the next time you're giving evidence in front of a parliamentary committee, they'll just be sitting there going, I'm not taking anything this bloke says. He's never had a boiled egg or an omelette. I can't. How can you trust this man? We've talked a lot, Kieran, about a potential and slightly odd takeover of Morecambe, but on the face of it, news this week that it might be a decent club to put your money into.
Well, yes, I keep a close attention to the accounts of every club, as you know, and this is something which I've been able to say on very rare occasions. We've got a club that's not only breaking even on relatively low revenue. It's made over £1 million in profit for the last 2 years, and that's hats off to the club. They had the lowest wage bill in League One. I know our friend Andy Holt at Accrington I think his was probably the second lowest, but I think Morecambe's was even lowest. And that was great. And then you say, well, can we therefore be relaxed about the future of Morecambe? And the answer is no. Right. Whilst they've made a profit, those profits appear to have gone into, first of all, paying interest on a loan from the Bond Group. The Bond Group is partly owned by a gentleman called Colin Goldring. He was part of the ownership group at Worcester Warriors, which effectively no longer exists as far as rugby is concerned. He was a trainee solicitor, and in what I quote as a personal injury fee earner. It's part of the industry, more commonly known as ambulance chasing. And he was banned from working in law firms by the Solicitors Regulatory Authority for a period of 10 years. And effectively, he wouldn't be allowed to have anything to do with legal firms unless he was very closely supervised. And the reason for this was to do with, it looks like he took money when working for a law firm from three very wealthy individuals from the Middle East. He took £9 million to buy 3 cars. Wow. And I don't think those 3 cars ever materialised. That's a lot of cars for personal use, Kieran. That's a lot of cars, a lot of grams.
Yeah, a lot of grams. A lot
of grams a car. So that's where we are. I mean, fair play, and I think we said this last week. The people who are running Morecambe Football Club on a day-to-day basis have got the best interests of the club at heart, but the owners are not those people. And trying to work out the owners' motives and also the Saab Capital potential takeover is a tricky one. So they're on very much on our watch list over the summer. And in an ideal world, they're one of those clubs I don't want to be talking about, but I fear that I will be.
in an ideal world, Kieran, we wouldn't be talking about any of them. And this next club is one I know for a fact we've never mentioned before, but such is the nature of the pod that I wish we weren't mentioning it now.
Yes, I was at a conference a couple of days ago, and somebody brought this to my attention. This is Warren Point Town in Northern Ireland, and they've done very well. They got average crowds of about 400, but it's I think they're in South Down. And as somebody that lives on the South Downs here in Sussex, I do feel a bit of a connection. They've done extremely well. They got into the promotion playoffs to go into the Premier League, and then the Irish FA said, "You've not paid a tax bill," and they said, "Oh, holy moly! Yeah, you're absolutely right. We hold the hands. Yeah, we messed up," and they paid it immediately. And they're saying, look, generally, it was an oversight. It was, we're run by volunteers, like many clubs at that level. Very sorry, and so on. But they're now into the promotions, and the Irish FA have turned around and said, we're going to deny you a license. We're going to deny you a promotion license to the Premiership if you win your promotion playoff. But worse than that, we're going to deny you a championship license to play in the division in which you're currently in. And I'm looking at this and going, well, this just seems to lack proportionality.
Yeah, harsh.
I'm not, I'm not condoning the late payment of taxes or anything. People do make errors, and if you show a bit of contrition, so it does seem a quite draconian reaction from the Irish FA. Given that the tax arrears has now been dealt with, the club has done extremely well on the pitch, and as you can imagine, the club is very upset. And what's going to happen in terms of they're going to appeal, but as the club's put on its website, this is money which is going to our silver-tongued friends, in effect.
Of course.
And I've always said that the job of the legal profession is to represent the clients, and I absolutely understand that. But volunteer-based clubs, which semi-pro on the pitch, effectively amateur off the pitch, it's difficult money to find. So all I say, just wish them well, and it's very messy.
I'd be intrigued, Kieran, to hear more of the context of this. I mean, are they serial offenders? Is this a one-off non-payment of tax? Because as you say, a lot of us, most of us, me, there are times when you don't pay your tax on time and you fess up and you say, I will pay it. And they go, okay, fine, make sure you do, or you pay it in installments. So as always, if anybody from Warren Point Town is listening, or indeed from the Irish FA, but please get in touch, and we'd happily talk to you about this, because it's one thing for an FA or a league to go after big clubs, big owners who are misbehaving, but what sounds like, as you say, it's a club run by volunteers who have made a mistake, rectified it. This seems very harsh. I don't know, Kieran, what a memorandum of understanding is, but it seems that two unlikely people have signed one.
Yes. This is the CAF, the Confederation of African Football, and the Saudi Arabian football authorities. And they've signed a memorandum of understanding. And it looks as if there's a chance of an African Super League being created. And I think that's great. It will have 24 clubs. Gianni Infantino, he's been saying that sounds good as well. And then thinking that sounds good. One of the issues with African football is that at club level, they don't have big TV deals. They don't have high prices in terms of tickets and so on. So therefore, there is a funding issue. So we've got this potential new competition. It's going to need some money. up pops along Saudi Arabian Football Authority, and they sign what we refer to as a memorandum of understanding. And it looks like this tournament is going to cost around about £160 million. Well, there's going to be about £160 million of funding a year, which is quite a lot. And then, as you know, Kevin, I'm not a cynic.
Indeed.
And I pride myself on not being a cynic. But I note that the Confederation of African Football has 54 members, and 54 members means it has 54 votes. Saudi Arabia wants to host the 2030 FIFA World Cup. And as part of the funding, there's going to be what we refer to as solidarity payments, which are going to be around about £1 million per individual country's FA. So there will be some funding, and that's absolutely fine. And I don't want to start a whispering campaign, because Saudi Arabia is entitled to opt to host the FIFA World Cup, and for all we know, it could put on a fantastic tournament. And then there are other issues to discuss with regards to that as well. So it does appear that a memorandum of understanding, cooperation, work together, improve the quality of football in both countries. All of that sounds good on paper, and we'll hope it comes to good in fruition. The cynic, which I'm not, would say that those solidarity payments, they're pretty generous, especially given that there's only going to be 24 clubs in the African Super League. So there's going to be quite a few countries in Africa who will not be participating in the tournament, but will be receiving money as part of this deal.
Yeah, as you say, Kieran, you're not a cynic, but I am, Kieran, because you know what? I was just looking at the rest of the stories we've got coming up. Most of them seem to be about European clubs, Kieran. And
yes.
This to me indicates that this is more than a coincidence, considering some club has just qualified for Europe for the first time ever, and now suddenly we're talking about Europe all over the place. I reckon there's a link there, Kieran. The first two of these stories are in Italy, and we've been talking about streaming a lot lately, and a lot of the questions we've been getting from our lovely listeners have been about streaming, but it's mostly for clubs at a lower level of English football, but it's been ramped up a little bit because one of the biggest clubs in Italy are looking for their own streaming deal. Yes,
this has come from Napoli, and the owner of the club, apologies for pronunciation, Aurelio De Laurentiis, he is bemoaning the fact that the broadcast rights in Syria are worth around about £1.1 billion, and that's about a third of what's generated in the Premier League. It's probably around about half of what they're getting from La Liga. And he says, we're losing this money, A, due to piracy even, and secondly, due to a general loss of interest in Italian football. And therefore, he says, let's go direct to consumer. And let's use the streaming platforms, the likes of DAZN or Netflix or Amazon Prime, as a means of directly getting in contact with clubs. And this has been mooted. I know he's not your favourite person, but Simon Jordan constantly refers to this, and he referred to me yesterday on TalkSport as Kelvin Maguire, which was the only Kelvin I've ever heard of is Kelvin Mackenzie, who is probably, as far as I'm concerned, one of the most reprehensible human beings ever to set foot in this country, because he was the editor of The Sun at Hillsborough. And he's never been particularly repentant with regards to his take on that. And
he was also the boss of TalkSport who sacked me and Mark Webster for using too many long words.
That's outrageous.
Yeah, I know. Juxtaposition was a word he particularly. He wrote down a list of long words that we'd been using that he didn't like. Hypermobility, didn't like that one. Anyway, that's all water under the bridge. He still owes us some money as well, but that was a long time ago. Crack on.
So that's where we are. Italian football is falling behind. We've seen the likes of Bournemouth being able to outbid the Milan teams for players, and you can therefore see why there is potentially a desire to bring more money in. We'll have to wait and see. The world of broadcasting and football is going to change. I think if we are still doing this show in 10 years' time, we will be doing the price of football from the metaverse. You see me and you in your shed, and me with my wonky chomps feeding Finley with 3D avatars representing us somehow. It scares the very thought of me. But I think we're...
Go on. Yeah, sorry.
I think there'll be significant changes in how the broadcasting industry and football interacts. And this is clearly sort of baby steps as far as that progress is concerned.
Yeah, I believe, Kieran, he's given up on the metaverse idea. Yeah, you're a mad billionaire. So I think we might be right. We might be back to just... You'll still be in your shed, Kieran, and I'll still be in mine, but... It'll be actually us. Kelvin McKenzie also got the hump one night because Mark Webster and I were doing the show in the summer months. They specifically got us in to do June, July, and the first week of August when there was no football to talk about football. 3-hour evening show, and he particularly got the hump because one night we were discussing a Pop Stars 11, and Mark Webster suggested that Johnny Marr could play as a number 10. And this went on for quite some time. And whether Kelvin McKenzie was furious about the whole concept of a Pop Star 11 or the fact that we had Johnny Marr at number 10, I don't know. But we got a lot of emails from Kelvin McKenzie in that 3 months.
Wow.
Kieran, I don't know whether fans of Juventus are aware of the work of the Chuckle Brothers, but this bloody 10-point penalty they get is taken on an air of the to me, to you, to me, to you. And it's landed back at Juventus again, isn't it?
Yes. Juventus were given a 15-point penalty in January. They then appealed against that, and it was suspended so that a further investigation to take place. And they have now been given a 10-point penalty with regards to what has been described as capital gains offences. So what they mean here is how they've been booking profits from player sales. And we mentioned a couple of years ago the very strange transfer of Arthur and Pjanic between Barcelona and Juventus, which just so happened to book huge profits for both clubs for players who are, they're professional football players in elite divisions. They get into our five-a-side team. We're not denying that, but the sort of the 60 and 70 million euro prices for those players did raise eyebrows. But because it was a player swap, very little cash took place in terms of swapping bank accounts, but big profits were being reported in the accounts. So they have been deducted 10 points, which means that they've gone from 2nd to 7th. So they could be playing in the Europa League next season. Just putting it out there. But I believe that they could also have a further points penalty, a further 10, 12, we don't know, with regards to wages, because Juventus is a company which is listed on the Italian stock exchange. And if you are listed, because your shares are being bought by individuals and bought and sold and traded on a regular basis, there is a higher degree of scrutiny. And Juventus had hinted, or made it probably more than hinted, that during the pandemic, players were taking pay cuts and pay deferrals. And then it transpired that perhaps they were embellishing that story a wee bit. And the Italian authorities are not very delighted about that. So, they've dropped from 2nd to 7th. They've still got 2 games left this season. But they've come out swinging as a result of that. But we'll again doesn't look too clever for a club which, remember, historically has also been demoted for shenanigans.
I'm trying to think of a country in Europe where you're less likely to meet boiled eggs when you go to the away games. And you must have had a chat with your mates about this, Kieran, after your laudable entry into Europe. What, just in terms of where you want to go, what would be your 3 dream teams in your European group?
Oh, we've already done this yet. Yeah. I think it's Leverkusen, because I think there's we could be pot 3. So we're talking about my love of German football, German fan culture. I think Leverkusen are 1, a Dutch team, and then I think there's one Uzbekistan or Azerbaijan. I want to go on Europe's longest flight journey.
Of course you do.
On a Thursday night, to watch us lose 1-0 to an 89th minute own goal by Lewis Dunk, and then spend 4 hours at the airport waiting for the flight to come back and come back on Friday night, because that's the joy of football.
You get real brownie. But I remember the Saturday after we went, about 100 of us were away at Wrexham the week before, and we made sure that every single Palace fan we bumped into for 2 weeks knew that we'd been to Wrexham. And that's exactly what you'll be doing. You'll be going into the quinoa shop saying, "I'm sorry, I'm a little bit tired. I've just come back from Uzbekistan. I didn't see you out there." I do. I really. What an adventure you're going on. I do envy you, Kieran. I think it's a brilliant achievement. But you mentioned Holland, and we mentioned just a week or so ago that surprise, surprise, Roman Abramovich may be investigated here for possibly squirreling some money away before the sanctions, but he's also going to be investigated in Holland by the look of things.
Yes. Historically, there's been what I would refer to as an entente cordiale between Chelsea and Vitesse Arnhem. Chelsea used to regularly have sort of players going out on loan there, swapping ideas, and knowledge exchange as an academic is something which we always encourage. So that seemed fine, and there were sort of harumphs and ums. Vitesse Arnhem seem to be doing okay. Seem to be punching a bit above their weight. But the Dutch FA, the KNVB, are now investigating, I think this is for the 2nd or 3rd time, as to whether or not Vitesse Arnhem were actually being funded by Roman Abramovich. I think, and Vitesse now have new owners, so this is looking at a historical period of the club's existence. And we go to the oligarch files, those fantastic ferrets of journalistic natures who have intercepted and hacked and God knows done. But if I say to you, money has been circulating between companies in the British Virgin Islands, Belize, and Liechtenstein, how are your eyebrows feeling about that in terms of that sounds legit?
To be honest, Kieran, my eyebrows are still suffering from the boiled egg scenario, so they're not getting any higher than that. In fact, they've come down just a tad on that news about the British Virgin Islands. But carry on again.
Well, it does appear, if these allegations are true, that Vitesse Arnhem was being funded for at least £100 million for strange money flow, Liechtenstein, Belize, British Virgin Islands, ending up in the Netherlands, and then these companies in these countries are linked to a Cypriot trust, which appears to be the beneficiary of which would be Roman Abramovich. And I've said on more than one occasion, there's close links between Cyprus and Russia, because Cyprus historically has done the money laundering for rich Russian individuals, that's not a criticism. And a few years ago, there was when we had the banking crash of 2007-8, all of the Cypriot banks turned round to all of their customers and said, we're going to give you what's referred to as a haircut, i.e., if you had $100 in your account, you've now just lost 10% of that. So it was pretty tough times. So it's going to be really hard work for KNVB, because money trail when you go into offshore areas is tricky. The Cypriot trusts will be taking a Fun Boy 3 our lips are sealed approach to giving up any information. And Mr. Abramovich hasn't been seen recently anywhere, and he's probably in a hollowed out volcano stroking a white cat as we very much speak at present.
It's just occurred to me, Kieran, if Brighton were to be drawn at some stage of the competition against a team from Liechtenstein or Luxembourg, then Guy would happily go with you to visit one of his favourite bank accounts, I imagine, wouldn't he?
Yes.
Just every now and again. He likes to go and see them in person every now and again, just like Boris Johnson's children. Just turns up, pats them on the head, disappears again. Our next story, Kieran, takes us to Portugal, and it's quite a pleasing cartoon image, this one. I know it's a serious story, but it does conjure up visions of Portuguese men in bowler hats and rolled up umbrellas for some reason.
Yes, there's been a mass investigation by the tax authorities of Benfica, Sporting, and Porto by their equivalent of HMRC in respect of tax fraud, social security fraud, and once again money laundering.
Wow.
With regards to those clubs in relation to offences alleged in respect of image rights, payments to agents, and player contracts, all of which sounds extremely entertaining. And it's come to an estimated €58 million total of money, which has probably not gone where perhaps it should have gone to as far as the tax authorities are concerned. So it does indicate that perhaps it's not just in this country where an independent regulator of football would be beneficial to the people there. And as fans, let's face it, we don't care about tax dodges by football clubs. We just care about what happens on the pitch. But there is a cost, because if you're defrauding the exchequer wherever you are, that's money which is not going into education, which is not going into health, it is not going into social care and so on. And football is a sufficiently wealthy industry to not to have to go down these particular rabbit holes, in my view.
I think, Kieran, as a matter of official policy, the Price of Football podcast does care about tax dodging football teams. Really, I think it's pretty much high up on our things to do list. Kieran, is to care about. I know we've cared more about boiled eggs than tax dodging football clubs today. Of course, I'll put a plea out to our lovely Portuguese listeners. If you could let us know what the Portuguese for independent regulator is, that would be lovely. But I mean, this is actually. I mean, there was more than 200 actual tax officials just turned up at the stadium, didn't they? And started searching for stuff. So this is obviously a coordinated event, which is why I say it's quite a pleasing image of Portuguese officials, probably with lovely rolled up shirts, but still with bowler hats and rolled up umbrellas, actually turning up and taking stuff away from the club. So it's they've obviously got paper evidence as well.
Yes, yeah, it's very intriguing. And I think it's indicative of the lack of trust that the tax authorities have, that they went in mob-handed, and effectively have taken away. I don't know if anybody's seen the recent documentary about Bernie Madoff and his pyramid scheme. When the SEC and the other authorities went in from the States, they went in very mob-handed, FBI, and the first thing they did was that they switched off the shredder. And I'll say no more than that.
Two more stories, Kieran. One of them is something that's caught your eye, a company called Oon Limited. Is that right?
Yes, this company called Unai.
Unai, I beg your pardon.
Unai, I think it's Unicorn November Echo. This is a company. This company which was formed in January 2023, and it's who cares? And the person who controlled it at the time was described as Carmine Raiola, and who was born in, I think it was 1967, 57. And this is, I'm going, well, hold on. That's Mino Raiola, this company was formed in January 2023, controlled by somebody called Carmine Roller. But Mino Raiola, who's known as a super agent, he was Paul Pogba's agent.
Yeah.
He's probably made more money in one deal than any other deal in the history of football. When Paul Pogba signed for Manchester United from Juventus, one of our former entertainers on this show, he was estimated to make £25 million in respect of a deal for Juventus, who wanted to sign the player, Manchester United, who wanted to buy the player, and Paul Pogba, who wanted to move from Italy to Manchester. Sir Alex Ferguson doesn't describe him as a super agent. Sir Alex Ferguson described him as, and I quote, a shitbag, which this is because Mino Raiola was also responsible for Paul Pogba leaving Manchester United and going to Juventus on a free transfer when his contract expired a few years ago. He is a divisive figure. He spoke 7 languages. If you spoke to the players for whom he represented, they thought the world of him because he fought their corner, and he was a really tough guy to have to deal with. So it's just a bit strange. The guy died in April 2022. So how can he be setting up a company in January 2023?
Oh, yes.
So that is today's mystery, and I'm sure there is a logical answer for that. Could this be another Doris Stokes related activity? We'll have to wait and see.
Well, so I the first thing that popped into my head, Kieran, was Randall and Hopkirk.
Oh yeah,
which was where a partnership of 2 private investigators, one of whom was dead. But that turned out to be quite useful because it meant you could pop in and out of places and go into safes without actually having to. So maybe this is the start of a new Sky Atlantic adventure, Kieran. Yeah, let's keep it. Now, our last story is about you. I don't know where you get the time, Kieran. I mean, obviously, you save yourself 5 minutes a day by not having a boiled egg in the morning. But in that 5 minutes, you're going to have to take on a new role, Kieran.
Yes, the Professional Footballers Association under Maheta are trying to address some issues to support their members, and they are setting up a business school. And there's a lot of people involved. I think our very good friend Nick DeMarco is going to be involved as well. And they've asked me to be the Bobby Numbers equivalent, and to do a course. And I'm just incredibly honoured and excited to get involved with this. So I'll be doing a course. Any opportunity to explain amortization to anybody. I walk up to complete strangers if they're looking a bit glum, and I'll talk to them about impairment and amortization just to bring a smile to their face before they give me a 2-word piece of advice.
Well, if anyone's listening from the PFA, and if any of your members want to take up stand-up comedy, I'll happily help you set up the brand new PFA stand-up comedy school. I'll be more than happy to do that. The next Price of Football live show will take place at Plymouth Argyle's Home Park Stadium on Tuesday, the 6th of June, so it's coming up. Tickets are available now from Argyle's website. Not many, but there are a few left if you want to come along. It'd be lovely to see you. Thanks to everyone who's donated to the pod via our Patreon page. If you'd like to make a small monthly contribution to the pod as well, then please go to patreon.com/priceoffootball. And if you have a question you'd like answered on the show, email us at questions@priceoffootball.com. And in the meantime, I shall hand you over to Mr. Kieran Maguire for his customary farewell.
Well, thank you, everybody, at Patreon. For as little as £1 a month, you can give us a bit of support. That's really kind. And I think some of the higher tiers, you don't get the adverts on the show. We are doing a special quiz for our Patreon subscribers as a thank you. So that's taking place next Wednesday, in fact, the 31st of May. So set your alarms. It'll be the usual nonsense. Kevin will be the Quizmaster General, and I will be nerdily researching bits and pieces of nonsense to form the questions. Well, we've done these before, and they've always been great fun. So you will be very welcome. We've had to restrict it to our Patreon members. A as a thank you to them. But B, we did have a sort of an open house one a couple of years ago, and one of the people who was on the show decided to strip naked. And that was actually quite unpleasant. We'll find sort of humour in most things, and that was actually very distasteful. But so we are going to have to restrict it to people. But there's another way. There's another way that you can support the show, and by all accounts, it's by going on to your app and giving us a review. It helps us in the charts, and we've been doing pretty well in the charts recently, as far as the sports charts in a variety of very strange countries. And it doesn't matter, by all accounts, according to Producer Guy, what you would say. So you could even say you would rather have the show presented by a honey badger. And a honey badger's a vicious little beast.
They are.
And Kelvin McKenzie in the same room, and it wouldn't bother me. In fact, I'd be absolutely delighted if that took place.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, Kieran, let's make it 2 honey badgers and Kelvin McKenzie.
Right.
And Kelvin McKenzie smeared in honey. I'm glad you reminded me about the end of season quiz on the 31st of May, because I hadn't put it in my diary, and that's the second time this week I'd have got in trouble, because I was last night busily telling Ali that what the plans were for the last day of the season and the home game against Nottingham Forest, and how we were going to get there early and make a proper day of it. And stay out late. And Ali went, okay, and which part of the day are we going to fit in our wedding anniversary meal? Yeah, yes, of course, darling. I didn't want, because part of it was going to be a surprise. I was like,
Hashtag awkward.
I can't. I'm not going to pretend I've got a ticket for her as a treat. So we negotiated brunch. It's not. I was going to say it's not a special wedding anniversary. That'd be a terrible thing to say.
They're all special.
They're all special. Next year is a very special one, but this year, we would have been married 30 years. Next year, yeah, you're right. We were 12 when we got married. Absolutely right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
The price of football. The price of football.